Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the campus principals, I'd like to thank you for visiting the Kennedy campus. My name is Charles Gallo, and I'm principal of Bronx Theater High School. This campus currently houses 7 high schools. Each one of us work together to provide high-quality education for all students and to create awareness that we have the responsibility to monitor our resources for generations to come. Under the administration of Mayor Bill de Blasio, the Kennedy campus has installed solar panels to lower our footprint and help make our campus dependent on other sources of energy. This is a 21st century concept that is now a reality thanks to the planning, preparation, and implementation from the Mayor's office. Our students have been given the opportunity to participate in green teams thanks to the initiatives put in place for sustainability coordinators this year by the Department of Education. These coordinators are responsible for creating an awareness of conservation and reduction in our footprint, as well as leading our youth to a cleaner, greener environment. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the Mayor of New York City, the Honorable Bill de Blasio.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Well done. I want to thank Principal Gallo. I want to thank him and the entire leadership team here and all the great people at this school for what they are doing to make this a greener school, to make this a part of the progress we need to make all over our school system, all over our city. The work here is extraordinary. The focus on environmental initiatives is profound. It's sending a powerful message to the young people who go to this school. It's setting an example for schools all over the city, for public buildings all over the city, for the private sector. This is one of the places where you can see what the future is going to look like. A number of folks at this school have done great work. I want to particularly mention one member of the staff who's truly devoted himself to this, Dan Steiner, who is the science teacher and sustainability coordinator at Bronx Theater High School. Dan has been recruiting students to be a part of his green team. They lead recycling efforts and smart energy initiatives. So he's teaching a whole generation of young people to focus on these issues and do something about it. And Dan has particularly been excited about these solar panels because they're not only something great for the environment and for the school, they also use the panels as part of the science classes to teach our young people about the future of energy. The JFK campus is a solar pioneer. This school and 8 other schools have solar panels already, but that number will rise very soon. We'll install solar panels on 24 newly roofed schools. It's an ambitious project, but it's a necessary one. We are blessed to have some real partnership and help in this from the state of New York. On Friday, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, NYSERDA, announced grants. The city of New York will get $5 million for these solar installation projects, and that will supplement substantial investment the city is already making. I want to thank everyone who made that grant possible, including Governor Cuomo, who I can tell you personally is very, very devoted to resiliency and understands how important it is to do that in our public buildings. And NYSERDA President and CEO John Rhodes and his board of directors, they have been great partners, sources of a lot of knowledge and support, and of course financial help as well. And I want to thank our DCAS Commissioner, Stacey Cumberbatch, and her whole team. They applied for the grants. They won them. They're going to be implementing these projects. I want to note a number of leaders of my administration who are here. I want to note some, acknowledge some up front, others you'll hear from in the speaking program. First, I'd like to acknowledge Dan Zerilli, who's been doing great work as our Director of the Office of Recovery and Resiliency. Rick Chandler, our Buildings Commissioner, Lorraine Grillo, the President of the School Construction Authority, and Linda Green, the Chief Administrative Officer of the Division of School Facilities. We also have environmental activists and business organizations that have been squarely a part of our efforts, have become key partners in what we're trying to do on sustainability and what we're doing and what we've announced recently in terms of climate change. I want to thank the Natural Resources Defense Council, the Real Estate Board of New York, and the Partnership for New York City, all of which have been tremendously supportive. A number of elected officials here to support these efforts as well. I'd like to acknowledge them. Some you'll hear from as well. I'd like to acknowledge Adriano Espaillat, New York State Senator, Jeff Dinowitz from the State Assembly, Donovan Richards, the chair of our Environmental Protection Committee in the Council, Councilmember Adonis Rodriguez, chair of the Transportation Committee, and Councilmember Andy Cohen. I think, Andy, were you in your district? Yes, we are. Excellent. On the border. Good enough. And you'll hear from a couple of other elected officials in just a moment. We had an extraordinary week last week, a truly historic week a week we're going to look back on, not only in New York City, but around the globe, as having been a turning point. The march on Sunday a week ago was bigger and stronger than anything predicted. Hundreds of thousands of people in New York City, and then at locations all over the world. There was an outpouring that said very clearly the people are ready for change. The people, in fact, in many ways are ahead of the politicians and the policymakers. And there's an urgency now. A combination of the marches around the world, the climate summit has really put a point on the fact that we have to act boldly and now. I've talked to some of you about the fact that this issue became important to me even as far back as the end of the 1970s when I got to NYU. It was the first issue I worked on was alternative energy and the threats facing the earth because of the way we misuse energy. That was 1979. We have made some real progress since, and yet we haven't solved the core problem, and we have the problem of climate change now bearing down on us as never before. That's why it is so important to act quickly, boldly, with every tool we have. These 24 projects we're talking about today are part of a larger commitment. They're going to be an important part because they're going to help lead the way in our efforts to use much more renewable energy in New York City. It's part of the bigger commitment we made during Climate Week that we will reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 80% over the 2005 levels by the year 2050. Again, we are now the largest city in the world to commit to the 80 by 50 goal. And I tell you, it was so striking last week how much that was felt by other leaders around the country and around the globe that New York City was stepping forward so squarely. We said it's a matter of survival. We have to get to this goal, and we're going to use every tool we have to achieve it. The fact is we need conservation, we need renewable energy, we need to cut emissions in every conceivable manner, we need new technology, we need all of these pieces. But we must reach the goal. It's a matter of survival. Solar is a crucial piece of this puzzle. It provides long-term carbon-free electricity, increases resiliency as well. We saw after Sandy what happened to some of our electricity supply. We want more and more of our electricity supply to be managed and run here in New York City. So we've set a goal of developing through our public buildings over the next 10 years 100 megawatts of solar power just on our public buildings alone. That means installing panels, solar panels on more than 300 city-owned building roofs. We also believe in the same time frame the private sector will reach about 250 megawatts, which will bring us to a grand total of about 350 megawatts being produced by solar in this city within the next 10 years. We'd like to go a lot farther, but that's our first goal. That will take us to about 1% of all city electricity being produced right here in New York City by solar, and will reduce annual greenhouse gas emissions by an estimated 35,000 metric tons, a reduction of 35,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. The 24 school projects we're starting with will generate a total of 6.25 megawatts of power, tripling the amount of solar power currently gathered on city building roofs. And it's also, again, important teaching tool. It's an opportunity to show the next generation of leaders and citizens and activists how this can be done. Yes, you save money when you put in renewable energy. Yes, it is technology we want to support in every way, but it's also a moral imperative. The great environmentalist John James Audubon said it very well years ago. He said, quote, "A true conservationist is a man who knows that this world is not given by his fathers, but borrowed from his children." That's the attitude we have to take. What we're doing today is the right thing to do for the future. It's the right thing to do for our children and grandchildren. With the help of our partners at the state government, we're one step closer today to handing off a planet that will be a safe place for future generations. A moment in Spanish. Hoy estamos anunciando una donación del Estado de Nueva York que nos ayudará a poner paneles solares en los techos de 24 escuelas públicas. Este proyecto nos ayudará a alcanzar nuestra meta de reducir las emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero en toda la ciudad en 80% hacia el 2050. With that, I'd like to bring up the man who we've given a lot of responsibility to because he has flourished in many tough assignments before. Asked him to play a key role in helping to move forward all of our efforts to respond to the aftermath of Sandy. We're also having him play a key role in our efforts at sustainability and our effort to reach the 80 by 50 goal. He's a proven force in these areas. My senior advisor for recovery, resiliency, and infrastructure, Bill Goldstein.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the weekend I read an article that noted that carbon emissions in the United States had risen in the first 6 months of 2014 compared with the same period in each of the past 2 years. A sobering statistic because clearly that's the wrong direction. But it's a statistic that only further reinforces the need that the largest city in the country undertake the responsibility to significantly reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions and lead by example. And with the new program announced by the mayor last week, that is just what we'll be doing. We've committed to put New York City, as the mayor said, on a path to reduce carbon emissions in the city by 80% by 2050. And we've developed an array of aggressive but achievable policies and initiatives that will focus on the source of almost 75% of the city's greenhouse gas emissions. And that's our public and private buildings. With us here today are some of the key people who will lead the city's efforts to increase the energy efficiency of the city's public buildings. Stacy Cumberbatch of DCAS, Lorraine Grillo of the School Construction Authority. I also want to acknowledge the role that's going to be played by our building department, Department of Buildings led by Rick Chandler, play a key role in code development and enforcement. And I think just as importantly, we saw last Friday at the Mayor's Roundtable that the leaders of New York City's real estate, business, and labor communities are also committed to attacking the problem on the private side. And I look forward to working with them all as we move ahead to undertake an effort that's critical to the future well-being of the city and will set an example for the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bill. Now, the woman who's in charge of all of our city facilities, making them run efficiently, but I can tell you she has an extraordinary sense of commitment to the environment and making our city buildings green and greener all the time. Our DCAS Commissioner, Stacy Cumberbatch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your leadership on climate change and setting a clear course for the city's contribution at reducing greenhouse gases by 80% by the year 2050. As some of you know, DCAS serves as the hub for energy management in New York City government, managing the energy accounts and efficiency initiatives for government operations. We're proud to lead in the implementation of the plan to make city buildings energy efficient as outlined in the mayor's new plan, One City Built to Last. The NYSERDA grant will help triple the amount of solar installed on city buildings, funding the installation of over 6.25 megawatts on 24 schools across 5 boroughs. We expect the new installations will result in approximately $2 million of avoided electricity costs. DCAS works as the city government's energy manager could not happen without the tremendous commitment and work of DCAS's energy team. So a special thanks goes out to Emily Dean and Jordan Decker under the leadership of Emily Small for submitting the winning grant application that brings us here today. And I also want to thank NYSERDA President and CEO John Rhodes for your leadership in including NYPA electricity customers such as New York City Public Schools in the New York Sun program. We look forward to working with our partners, the Sustainability Office, DOE, School Construction Authority, and NYPA in implementing these important projects over the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to bring forward Professor Jeff Sachs. Jeff is one of the great voices on this earth for environmental sustainability. He also is one of the great voices for economic fairness and justice, and those two efforts have to come together in all we do to protect the Earth. We have to look at the incredible opportunities to create jobs and create economic opportunity that come along with this. But as the director of the Earth Institute at Columbia University, I can say I saw it with my own eyes. This week, global leaders flock around Jeff because he gives them a sense of a roadmap, a way forward, and a way to take on this challenge. He's been a very powerful voice. Bring forward Professor Jeff Sachs.
Mr. Mayor and ladies and gentlemen, 80 by 50 is the right goal. It's achievable. It's smart. The whole world's going to have to do this. It's fitting that New York City is in the lead. And I happened to have the chance to watch the mayor deliver this message to a room full of world-leading mayors last week. And they were moved, impressed, spurred to action. New York is going to develop new business models, new strategies on how to reach 80% by 2050. That is an 80% reduction of CO2. The whole world's going to agree to this a year from December. It's interesting, there was an editorial in one of the newspapers recently that said, is the mayor trying to pull us back to the 19th century with this when we don't use energy? And obviously the answer is the mayor's pulling us into the 21st century. This is cutting edge. It's absolutely the way that low carbon energy is going to be produced in the 21st century. When the mayor started studying alternative energy in the late 1970s, the cost of 1 watt of solar panel was about $77 a watt, and now it's down to 70 cents a watt. This is advances in semiconductor technology that have driven forward a new generation and a new opportunity for low-cost, low-carbon energy. This is the way we're going to save ourselves. Starting with the buildings is brilliant. This is where about 3/4 of the city's emissions occur. I think the plan's going to go on to transport and to other areas as well over time. New York will be in the lead as usual. Around the world, it's going to be developing the ways forward, and it's going to reap huge advantages for being in the lead. So we salute you and thank you for bringing us together, but actually you brought the whole world together last week around this goal, and that's extremely exciting.
Thank you very much. Well, part of why we're moving decisively here in New York City is because there's unity among our elected leaders. This is an idea that there's tremendous belief in, that we have to reach 80 by 50, that we have to make profound changes, that the public sector has to lead the way in that effort. One of the strong voices and true believers in this effort, and a key partner, is our public advocate, Tish James.
Thank you. Let me just say, I follow Jeff Sachs, and when Jeff Sachs speaks, everyone listens, so it's an honor to meet him. Last week, the administration announced that New York City will commit to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050. Today, I am proud to join Mayor de Blasio in the unveiling of 24 new solar installations sited at city schools, one of the first steps towards both drastically increasing our city's level of solar power and decreasing harmful emissions. A total of $28 million in state and city funds will go towards this groundbreaking energy plan, which will take a substantive step towards addressing climate change. Under the previous administration, our city incentivized solar energy installations through a solar panel tax abatement. In just a few days, Governor Andrew Cuomo signed a law extending these property tax breaks for the installation of electricity generating solar panels on city buildings, which in part offsets the higher costs associated with solar installations. Solar energy is an unlimited and emissions-free source of power that can be easily integrated into urban environments. And we recognize that the best way to hasten a transition to clean energy is to make solar technology accessible for residential and commercial property owners while retrofitting public buildings. Experts have estimated that solar systems mounted on rooftops and building facades could potentially supply 18% of the city's electricity by 2022. Today, under the leadership of Mayor de Blasio, New York City can and will be the premier leader in countering the effects of climate change by implementing the city's ambitious green buildings plan. I commend the mayor and his administration for this bold and powerful initiative and commit to working with the administration and New York's public and private sector to help implement it. Together, we can build a city that's greener, cleaner, and more efficient than ever. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One of the strong voices of environmentalism and attacking climate change that I worked with back in my days in the City Council and many days since, our Manhattan Borough President, Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. We're half in Manhattan and half in the Bronx, just so you know, depending on which side of the podium you stand. I'm honored to be here, and of course, I love my other borough presidents, but we're very competitive. We want Manhattan to be #1 in terms of carbon reduction, and all environmental is local, just like all politics is local. So working with the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board, headed up by former Sanitation Commissioner Brendan Sexton, and working with the Lower East Side Ecology Group, we've been doing a lot. And always, Mr. Mayor, with your wonderful city agencies. For instance, we are working on composting. Every single school will be composting, started with the West Side schools, I want to add. And those efforts are being coupled with work that I put together with the wonderful agencies, education and sanitation. And then we had a meeting with all the union members to be able to make sure that it's done correctly. The second issue we're working on with your wonderful DCAS commissioner and other agencies is trying to get the agencies to buy local food sourcing from upstate to come to the agencies, because New York City is #2 only to the Department of Defense in purchasing food, lettuce, all the other kinds of wonderful fruits and vegetables from the state of New York. We've been on a farm tour with agencies, and we hope, based on a bill that I passed while in the council, to make New York City a place where we buy local food for our hospitals and senior centers and the schools, and we're working on that strongly. We're also working, we have a wonderful program for the municipal building. All members can buy food fresh from the farmers once a week on a Thursday afternoon, and hundreds of city workers come and purchase their food locally. So the solar is incredibly important. I know, for instance, that Brandeis High School now has solar panels. Some years ago, it makes a big difference. And when you go to the Brooklyn Navy Yard, every lamp, every street pole is solar powered. Makes a big difference in savings and quality of life. And we'd love to see some of that solar power not only on the schools and school buildings, but in the parks, on the lamp posts around parks. So many opportunities. Manhattan, go. Thank you.
Yeah, fired up. We're going to give you a physical representation of the fact that the campus is split between Manhattan and the Bronx by bringing forward our 2 congressmen. They have a tough job because they're trying to make change on the national scale. There's been way too much resistance in the House of Representatives to the notion that we have to reach these higher goals. That's why it's so important for localities to act, to send the message to Washington that this is a matter of survival. I want to thank them for always fighting that fight in Washington, no matter what the odds. First, the Dean of our congressional delegation, Congressman Charlie Rangel.
I'm certain that Elliot Engel would agree with me that in the Congress, members from the city of New York truly believe we have more self-esteem than we really need. But the truth of the matter is we're so proud to represent New York. And Mr. Mayor, this morning is one of the reasons that we are proud. I can hardly think in the last few years for a cause that is so just that he has been able to bring out every member elected official to show the strength of New York politically, as well as this is the right thing to do. It is true that we've had a setback in Washington, and I don't have to explain to you what it's about. But when I went with the president to Copenhagen for the International Committee for Climate Control, it was the Republican-controlled Congress that disallowed us from making the type of contribution that we would want to make to our international family. But this mayor, in finding out what resources are available in order to show what can be done by the greatest city in the world for the entire world, has embarked the president to use that executive power that he has. And so Elliot and I go back to the Congress, strengthened with the knowledge that the president is fully committed not only to improve the health of our constituents that suffer so badly with asthma, not only to improve the economy with the lower cost of energy, but to fill our moral commitment to make this world at least as comfortable for our children and grandchildren as our forefathers have neglected to do for us. And so thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your leadership. Thank you, my partners in government, and thank you and the principal and the students of this school that on their own has done enough to be selected as a national example of what we can do. Si se puede.
Finally, our Congressman Elliot Engel is one of the most powerful voices on international issues in the Congress as the ranking member of the International Affairs Committee, and that includes being a voice for environmental sustainability and showing that the United States can be the leader it needs to be in this area. Congressman Elliot Engel.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really want to commend Mayor de Blasio for taking bold steps to transform 24 of our public schools into green energy buildings, and at the same time educating our children about the need to protect our environment. We were having a little debate whether we were physically in the Bronx or physically in Manhattan, but wherever it is, it's all good, because this is what we should do. In Congress, as the mayor pointed out, I'm the ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, but I'm also the senior New Yorker on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and they come together very, very easily. First of all, we know that we have to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels. But secondly, as long as we are dependent on oil and energy needs from other countries, it affects our foreign policy. We can never really be free. So this is a situation that's win-win. It's good for the environment. It's the way we need to go. And at the same time, it frees the United States from having to bend over backwards to appease certain unsavory governments because we need their oil. We have to make every effort to produce renewable energy and at the same time reduce greenhouse gases. We had this marvelous march in Manhattan last week. I was proud to participate and proud to be a part of that. And the best way to wean ourselves off of foreign oil and fossil fuels is to create a partnership between the public and private sector and to develop green programs that will supply our future energy needs. So I want to again commend Mayor de Blasio for taking bold steps to transform 24 of our public schools. And I'm one of the honest jobs, the only honest job I guess I had was I was a classroom teacher in the New York City public schools, and I'm educated in the public schools. Our public schools are great, and under our mayor they're getting even better. And so I really want to commend him for transforming 24 public schools into green energy buildings while educating our children about the need to protect our environment. This is something that dovetails very, very well. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm proud to be a part of it, and I want to thank my colleague Charlie Rangel, who's the dean of our delegation. Thank you.
Okay, let's take on-topic questions followed by off-topic. Let's start with on-topic.
To get the solar installations, or are there others that are currently getting them?
AC Cumberbatch will give you the facts.
So currently there are 9 schools that are outfitted with solar panels. Under this grant, however, we're increasing it to 24 schools that will also have solar panels by 2016. We're still doing a feasibility study as to which schools, but they will be representative of all the boroughs.
Gail Brewer is repeatedly claiming in the back she's heckling. She is saying she is first. I'm going to agree with her in this instance. On topic, yes.
At these schools, what percentage of the energy used by the schools will actually come from the panels?
It will depend on the circumstance, but go ahead, give the rundown.
Hard to determine. It depends on that school's energy use at the time. So it all depends. It's based on a formula. So it varies from school to school. What our team does is we do an assessment of current energy load for that particular school, and then based on a formula, some determination is made on how much comes from solar, how much comes from traditional energy sources.
This school is an example
Of
how much energy
5%.
5%? Okay, my energy team tells me it's 5% is actually generated from solar.
Integrated into the curriculum. Maybe we could hear from the principal a little bit about how the students learn about it.
Mr. Steiner, who's our environmental science teacher, is head of the green team, and he's doing various activities with the kids, such as green teams and different activities throughout the building. Mr. Steiner?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. In environmental science, we teach about sustainability. The Earth cannot continue on its path of waste and riches to rags, and many nations in the world are suffering because of climate change. We discuss these topics. We talk about energy. We have a garden where we grow local food, and the kids get hands-on work with solar and other fossil fuel reduction. And hopefully we'll be able to get involved with checking the meter. I understand there'll be 20% reduction in this school.
And your recycling is very good.
And we're starting our recycling of paper for the past 3 years.
Well done. Look at the, right, you're inspiring us. You're giving us the message there. On topic. On topic. Yes.
So it's been said here that the whole world is going to have to get on board this,
Yep.
but China has a reputation for not getting on board when it comes to pollution and concern about the environment. Is there any concern here that how do you get a place like China on board?
Well, I think that's starting to change. I think, as with many things in China, the people are speaking and demanding a greener future. And I think the government there is aware of that fact. I think the economics are changing. And you see as was pointed out earlier about the changes in the market dynamics, as Jeff Sachs explained. Now we're getting solar panels at a much cheaper price. A lot of that is coming out of China. I think the dynamics are changing, and it is untenable for China to stand apart. So part of what we have to do is create more pressure, not just on China, but on all nations and all localities around the world. And this is an emerging model. It's something I've talked to Jeff Sachs about and a lot of other leading voices in this world, that when national governments have been slow to act, whether it's climate change, poverty, so many other areas, it's up to local governments to act and set the pace and push upward. And I think it's going to be very difficult for China, seeing so much action around the world, to stand apart next year when we come to that crucial milestone. On topic, yes?
Why did you pick 2050 and not before?
Because we felt that 80% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2050 was a very ambitious goal, a difficult goal, but a necessary one. It's a globally recognized goal. We did a lot of analysis here in New York City to see what it would take to reach it. We are planning on some technology advances as part of that process, given what we've seen. Jeff's example is a good one about changing technology, improving technology, lower cost of renewable technology. We are confident that the technology will meet us as we need. But this was the highest goal we believe we could reach, and it was the new international gold standard.
Other than the 9 schools that have the solar panels, are there any other city buildings that have been retrofitted so far?
Yep. Energy team?
Energy team, you can come up if you like. You could.
Emily, come.
Some member of the energy team has to come forward and name yourself. You cannot stand in the shadows any longer.
Emily.
Hi, Emily Dean, DCAS. So in terms of other city buildings that have solar PV, there are 19 other buildings amounting to about 500 kilowatts. And through the mayor's initiative to expand solar on city buildings, we'll be touching at least another 300.
On topic, on topic, on topic. Yes.
Just to confirm, so JFK currently has solar panels installed, but is that one of the 24 schools?
No, that's one of the initial 9 that have been outfitted already. So the 24 under the new grant that we just received.
So there's 24 brand new schools. It's not
exactly. In addition to the 9, there are 24.
This is a model of what you'll see more of. So we wanted to give you a real existing model. And I'm assuming that our colleagues in the press will get a chance to see the solar panels. Good. After this, we'll get a chance to actually see them. Okay. On topic, yes.
So, Mr. Mayor, for emblematic reasons, will there be solar panels on City Hall?
We're going to look at that. We're going to look at all city buildings and see where it makes sense to install them. But I think we want to send a powerful message on everything we're doing, on the 80 by 50, on the use of renewable energy. We're going to look to do that first and foremost where we think it's going to make a functional difference and really help us reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. But there will be some cases where it also is important to do so symbolically, so that's definitely an option. On topic. Okay, I'm going to turn the tables before off topic. I get to ask a question. Members of the press corps, how many of you believe that here at JFK they are collecting solar power right now on this overcast day? How many believe right now power is being collected? How many of you believe it is not being collected because it is overcast? Stacey Cumberbatch, will you give us the answer, please?
You're right. We're collecting power. So even if it's overcast, these panels are absorbing energy.
That was so much fun to ask you a question. I'm going to do that from time to time. All right, off topic.
Okay. Students, especially here at JFK, where the school has been closed due to poor performance, for the past 12 years showed little improvement academically. However, the previous mayor did institute the extended day program, which has been eliminated this school year. What have you and what are you doing to improve student improvement in their performance?
We're going to have a lot more to say about our struggling schools in the coming weeks. We have a very aggressive model. It's different from the previous administration's model. It's a different level of investment, a different level of personnel that are brought in to help a struggling school. So I want to express my admiration for all the professionals here who are working hard. We think there's other things we can do to support them, but we'll have more to say on that in the next few weeks.
There's been a two-part question. First of all, I was wondering if you could comment on these ads that are out today by Families for Excellent Schools that are critical of the public school system. They're running them for about a week or so. And two, whether you think they should be revealing all of their funders, all of their donors, rather.
I have not seen the ad, so I can't comment on the details of the ad. Of course, I think people should disclose their backers. I think this is something the public demands. I've been working on these issues for a long time, since the very, very unfortunate decision in the Citizens United case by the U.S. Supreme Court. I think disclosure is the one thing that everyone should agree on, so the public can judge what interests are at play. On the substance of the issue, look, I've talked about this a lot. I'll have more to say in the coming weeks. My job is to serve all the children of this city. Over 1 million of those kids go to traditional public schools. That's our first obligation, to get it right. We know that many parts of our school system are not working the way they should. We have started on a very bold plan to change the school system from its foundations up. That's why we're going to do full-day pre-K for all, after-school programs, community schools. That's why we achieved a contract with the teachers union that allows for more teacher training, more strategic involvement with parents. There's so many things that have to change in this school system. But we're devoted to making every school work. I think that is the structural change that's needed in this city. And that's what we're devoted to. And I'm very proud of our public schools. Our public schools have turned out extraordinary leaders, internationally famous leaders throughout their history. Our public schools serve so many children who need that support every single day. We need to make them universally good. We need to reach every neighborhood, every school, and that's what we're devoted to doing.
Former President Ruben Diaz Jr. Announced a bill that would institute a letter grading system to the businesses in the cosmetology industry. Would you sign a bill like that? Why or why?
I haven't seen the bill. I'll certainly look at it. We want to make sure that all facilities are safe, but I need to see it before I could comment.
Mayor, the deal to maintain some limited amount of health care at Litch seems to be in danger, NYU possibly pulling out. Do you still consider what's happened there a success, and is there anything that you can do at this point to stop what seems to be kind of...
We've been very active in the last few days at City Hall, a number of us, in the effort to bring that deal back together. I feel good about the possibilities that we will make that deal work. NYU is a very strong healthcare provider. I think we have an opportunity here to ensure that the neighborhood has quality health care, which was always the goal. So I feel that we're on the right track, and that when we achieve that outcome, we will have succeeded in what we said we wanted to do last year, which was to preserve health care on the site.
I was wondering if you could describe what you felt last week when you found out that the groundhog you held at the ceremony last year died shortly after.
I found out as all of you found out. I had no idea previously, and I would just refer questions to the Staten Island Zoo. They're the experts.
Follow up, I was wondering if you had any plans to hold a groundhog again.
Again, I'm going to let the Staten Island Zoo determine what's the right course of action. I'm certainly open to any changes, but we have to let them determine what makes sense.
Mr. Mayor, regarding the report about the elimination of solitary confinement at Rikers Island for 16 and 17-year-olds, can you talk about what alternative punishments might replace that? And then regarding the adult population, is there plans to reduce the use of solitary there, and when will that begin?
We'll be unveiling different reforms over time. I think I've made clear, and our Commissioner Joe Pont has made clear, the status quo at Rikers is unacceptable. We're going to be doing a series of reforms. We're making a lot of investments, particularly in terms of trying to improve facilities for the youngest inmates and for those with mental health challenges, and sometimes it's both. I think the bottom line here is that there are available alternatives. Joe Pont can give you a good sense of the history and why these alternatives work, and that we think they're more effective and more humane, particularly for our youngest inmates. So we'll move in that direction. But there's going to be a series of reforms made there.
Just to follow up on the Struggling Schools Initiative, I mean, do you think it's appropriate that we're now like a month into the school year and some of these schools are still feeling like they are waiting and seeing? I mean, now that the school year started, do you think that things need to be moving a little bit quicker?
I think they will move quickly. I think the fact is, and we've been straightforward about this, we've been moving a series of very big reforms when it comes to our schools. Pre-K, after school for middle school kids, community schools, the teachers' contract, including the new PRO schools, the reform schools. We're going to be speaking soon on discipline issues. We're going to be speaking soon on struggling schools. You're going to see a series of additional reforms. Each one of these takes real time to construct properly, but I can guarantee you when it comes to our effort to involving struggling schools, some of that work's already happening right now in this school year, and we will announce more, and you'll see the effects during this school year.
You said last week, in light of the recent report about Rachel Nordlinger, that you had full faith in her. Your old press secretary, Liz Smith, wasn't allowed to continue after it was revealed she was dating Elliot Spitzer. I mean, what's the difference here?
The very different situations. Liz worked on my general election campaign. She did a great job. As you know, she's a prominent consultant nationally, and she chose to go back to consulting work. This is a very different situation. Yep.
When did you find out about Governor Cuomo's trip to Afghanistan this weekend? Did you have any heads up, and have you heard any reports on the trip so far?
We got a heads up just before it became public, and I have not heard reports back, but I commend him. I think he's getting information that's important for New York State, and obviously very much appreciate that he is there in support of our troops.
You mentioned Rikers Island. There are some other options for the younger criminals. Can you just expand on that? Where are those other options? Well,
we're going to be laying out our reform plans at Rikers Island steadily. But I think this is an indication immediately of the fact that we're trying to treat the youngest inmates differently. We don't think solitary confinement is the right path. We certainly do want to do a lot more to attend to mental health needs. And I think it's a pretty well-known fact that a lot of the challenge at Rikers is more and more of the folks who come in recent years have profound mental health issues. We've got to get to the core of that problem. So there'll be a series of reforms. You saw some in our budget we announced in June. You've seen some announcements like the one related to solitary, but it's going to be an ongoing effort.
The Astoria Cove development is being voted on by the City Planning Commission today. They've committed so far to 20% affordable housing. A lot of people are asking for more than that. What do you think is, an appropriate level for a development like that?
It always depends on the development because, first of all, it depends on the specific finances, and there are times when the finances are more difficult than other times. It depends on what other public needs are being met by the development. So that work is still going on, and obviously then there's going to be a further process on it thereafter. So the bottom line is we strive for the highest percentage of affordable housing available in each development. Sometimes we may say there's another important need that is being met. I can think of several developments where that was public school space or public park space. But the goal going into every discussion is to pump that affordability number up, and there's still time on the clock here.
Hi, Mayor. You've traveled to Europe while in office. Governor Cuomo has been to Israel and Afghanistan. Do you have any plans in the near future to also travel to the Middle East region? We'll
see. I've said I certainly intend to go back to Israel. I've been 3 times. I certainly intend to go back at some point, but we don't have a specific plan yet. Jim? Rich, I did that again. I knew a Jim Lamb many years ago, who was a lawyer I worked with, and I still confuse Rich and Jim. I'm sorry, Rich.
Mr. Mayor, a couple of pedestrians were hit over the weekend. Is it reasonable to use a term like Vision Zero? Do you think? I mean, I know that's aspirational, but Is there any way to actually eliminate, pedestrian deaths?
Rich, it's a very fair question. I think what we saw in other places that have attempted these strategies, and Sweden is particularly famous for it, but other places as well, is the rallying cry really mattered. It really mattered to say, how much of this is a problem we can solve? It turns out a vast amount of this problem is one we can solve. Some of it comes down to individual behavior, a lot of it. And the whole message around Vision Zero and all the energy it's created and all the local discussion it's created is helping to change behavior. Some of it comes down to government being smarter. The speed cameras around schools, the traffic calming measures, the speed limit. They come together and they really start to change behavior. So I think it is right to call it that because it's calling out to people the notion that if they change their behavior, literally we can save lives on an unforeseen scale. I think it is the right way to talk about it. I understand how difficult it is. But unlike some other problems we face, this one really comes down to individual behavior and changeable behavior in a much more profound way. Last call.
Sorry to circle back here, but are you concerned that anything you did contributed to the death of...
I think I've spoken to it. Talk to the Staten Island Zoo. Thanks, guys.